Welcome. This is HistoGate Chronicles.
And thanks for joining us.
This is our second episode in this new series.
In each one, we're going to be, really digging into one of the gripping stories from our books about real historical conspiracies and cover-ups. And today, we are plunging into a really captivating one. The biological cost of Apollo missions. The radiation NASA downplayed.
That's quite a story.
It really is. And it's one of 5 featured in our book, The Secret History of Science, Volume 1. If you want to explore it more, get the full text. There's a link right there in the description for this deep dive.
Definitely worth checking out.
So when you think Apollo, what pops into your head first? Armstrong's big step.
The landing, yeah. The flag.
That iconic image, right? Human ingenuity, pushing the limits. It feels like the ultimate win.
It absolutely was a triumph, no question. A huge moment.
What if behind that shiny achievement, there were these unseen forces, silent gambles, a kind of debt maybe, written in invisible ink that we're only now starting to read.
That's a really good way to put it. The glory, yeah, it was real. But the unknowns, they were just as real and frankly, pretty terrifying. Lurking right outside Earth's, protected bubble.
Like what?
Well, picture this sort of invisible ocean of, fury surrounding the planet. And then you've got the sun 93 million miles away, capable of throwing these massive temper tantrums, cosmic hurricanes, really.
And didn't the astronauts report weird things? Like lights?
They did.
Yeah.
Strange streaks of light behind their eyes, even when they were closed, deep in space. And let me tell you, that wasn't just like some quirky visual thing. It was unsettling, much more than just lights.
Okay, so over the next maybe 25 minutes or so, we're going to peel back the layers here. We'll look at the hidden biological costs, the story NASA built around it, this engineered narrative, and this chilling story of the storm that missed, an event that almost changed everything.
Almost rewrote the history books.
Yeah. It's not just about rockets, it's cosmic Russian roulette, isn't it? This invisible debt. A cost that might still be unfolding. So, strap in. Okay, let's get into this. Where does this story even begin? Not on the moon, right?
No, much earlier. Smaller scale, actually. Back in 58, January 1958. The space race is just heating up. Lots of optimism. And the U.S. launches Explorer 1, tiny satellite. And inside, there's this simple Geiger counter built by Dr. James Van Allen, physicist from Iowa.
Just a standard Geiger counter.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But what it sent back, or rather what it didn't send back, that changed the whole game.
What do you mean what it didn't send back?
Well, it was bizarre. At certain altitudes, it gave the expected readings, background radiation.
Yeah.
But then higher up, it just went silent. 0 counts.
Broken.
That's what they thought initially. But the truth, when they figured it out, was way more dramatic. That silence wasn't no radiation. It was too much radiation. Total overload. The instrument was just completely saturated by charged particles. It shut down, and boom, humanity discovers the Van Allen radiation belts.
Wow.
Yeah. 2 huge invisible rings of furious trapped radiation around Earth. And here's the kicker. If you wanted to go to the moon,
you had to go through them.
Straight through. No scenic road available.
That's a heck of a hurdle right at the start. Not something you can just engineer your way around easily.
Not at all. A fundamental biological challenge. But then, politics speeds things up. 1961, JFK lays it down.
The big speech.
Yep. Land a man on the moon and return him safely. And the key part. Before this decade is out.
Safety was in there, but that deadline.
That deadline was the driver. The Cold War was raging. Space was the front line for showing technological supremacy, proving your system was better. Losing wasn't really contemplated.
So the pressure was immense. Solve the radiation problem and solve it fast.
Yeah, solve might be too strong a word. And the Van Allen belts weren't the only invisible monster out there.
Oh, what else?
2 more big ones. First, galactic cosmic rays. GCRs. Think of them as this constant, steady rain of atomic nuclei. Leftovers from supernovas, stars exploding.
Just raining down all the time.
All the time. Zipping around near the speed of light. Tiny bullets. The main defense. Go fast. Minimize your time in the rain.
Okay. Manageable, maybe. What's the second?
That's the real beast.
Yeah.
The solar particle event. SPE. If GCRs are a drizzle, an SPE is a cosmic hurricane.
From the sun.
Yeah, from a big solar flare. The sun basically just blasts out this torrent of high-energy protons. It can happen with very little warning.
And that's dangerous.
Lethal. An astronaut caught outside on a spacewalk during a big SPE, they'd have minutes. maybe less.
Good grief.
Even inside the command module, which had some shielding, a major SPE meant catastrophic illness, acute radiation sickness, a slow, horrible way to go.
So how did NASA plan to deal with that? And the belts?
Okay, for the Van Allen belts, the initial idea was just speed, a fast trajectory, punch through them in less than an hour, rip the Band-Aid off quick.
Makes sense.
But then came this really clever bit of orbital mechanics, the free return trajectory.
I've heard of this, the safety feature.
That's it. Brilliant idea. If the main engine conked out after they were headed to the moon, they wouldn't need to fire it again. The moon's gravity would just whip them around.
And sling them straight back to Earth like a boomerang.
Precisely. A lifesaver if your engine fails.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
it created a trap.
How so?
If a big solar storm, an SPE, erupted while they were coasting out there, they couldn't turn back. They couldn't speed up. They were locked into that trajectory for days.
Exposed.
Totally exposed. Riding it out. It was a gamble. A trade-off between engine failure risk and radiation risk.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a trade-off made pretty quietly.
So NASA's public face was?
Publicly. It was all about a quiet sun. They planned missions during predicted solar minimums, when the sun was less likely to flare up, hoping for the best.
But internally?
Internally, they knew. They absolutely knew it was cosmic Russian roulette. The trigger was 93 million miles away. Completely unpredictable. They were essentially like putting astronauts in a tin can and tossing it into a potential storm, just crossing their fingers.
Wow, the stakes. Just astronomical.
Literally.
Okay, this leads to something else. You mentioned the narrative, the story NASA told. You said it was maybe the most powerful engine.
Yeah, in a way. You had the Saturn V rocket, sure, pushing the hardware, but you also had Julian Scheer, NASA's head of public affairs. He was the architect of the Apollo story.
And that story was crucial.
Absolutely vital. He got it. Apollo wasn't just science. It was a performance, a massive public undertaking. And that story had to protect the mission's budget, which was eye-watering, and its, let's face it, fragile political support. It needed to look perfect, invincible almost.
So how did they manage that with all these risks swirling around?
Well, Scheer's official policy sounded great. Maximum disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Very open, very transparent, but there was always the fine print, consistent with the national interest. And in the Cold War, national interest was a big umbrella. It basically allowed them to control the information flow very tightly.
Raining.
Meaning the narrative had to project absolute confidence. No room for doubt, no hint of, unacceptable risks. It wasn't about telling outright lies necessarily. It was more subtle. Systemic omission, you could call it.
Hiding things in plain sight.
Sort of.
Yeah.
The heroics, the successes front and center, public consumption,
Yeah.
the scary uncertainties, the really dicey stuff,
Yeah.
buried. Deep inside, incredibly dense, jargon-filled technical reports. Thousands of pages sometimes. Who's going to read all that?
Right. Information overload. And you mentioned press kits?
Oh, yeah. The press kits were legendary. They weighed a ton. Stuffed with minute-by-minute flight plans, engineering diagrams, endless data.
Data dump.
A deliberate data dump. Designed to impress, maybe intimidate, definitely overwhelm reporters. And somewhere in there, maybe a small subsection.
The radiation bit.
Yeah. Always acknowledged but neutralized. Phrasing like adequate shielding. Mention of the Solar Particle Alert Network, SPAN, to provide warnings, made it sound like they had it covered.
But the reality.
The reality was different. Adequate shielding. Against GCRs, maybe slightly helpful. Against a major SPE, like tissue paper against a shotgun blast. Essentially useless.
And SPAN. The alert network.
Well, calling it an alert was generous. Remember, the light from a flare gets here in 8 minutes. The really nasty protons could arrive in maybe half an hour, sometimes less.
So the warning time was?
Best case, maybe 20 minutes. And that's 20 minutes warning for a disaster already happening millions of miles away.
Not enough time to do anything.
Nothing meaningful. It was less an alarm, more like an obituary service. You'd know you were cooked, but way too late.
Oh, wow. That's bleak.
It was the reality they were dealing with.
And the astronauts, how did they fit into this managed narrative?
They were the face of it, weren't they? The living embodiment. Think about those Life magazine spreads. Wholesome, all-American heroes. Perfectly calm under pressure.
Chosen for that calm, right? Not just flying skill.
Exactly. Preternatural calm, they called it. An immense discipline. They were military officers, most of them. In a high-stakes mission during the Cold War, they understood the need for message discipline. Keep quiet about the really scary stuff. Loose lips,
Sink spaceships.
pretty much.
Oh.
So Julian Scheer's story, this carefully built narrative, it really did act like its own kind of heat shield,
Protecting the mission from the truth.
Protecting it from the incinerating power of the truth, as the book puts it. Protecting it from public doubt, political second-guessing. It was a masterclass in managing perception, maybe just as vital as the engineering.
Okay, let's just focus a bit to the astronauts themselves out there. You mentioned the light flashes. That sounds deeply weird.
It really does. It started with Buzz Aldrin on Apollo 11, trying to sleep, pitch black cabin, eyes closed, and he sees this silent, instantaneous pinpoint of white light.
Just once?
No, it kept happening. And on later missions, Apollo 12 onwards, it became almost routine. Astronauts reported seeing streaks, starbursts, double flashes, all behind closed eyes, in total darkness.
What on earth was causing that? Not just tired eyes.
Definitely not. The science is pretty chilling, actually. It was those galactic cosmic rays we talked about, GCRs. But not just any GCRs, the heavy ones, like an iron nucleus, stripped bare, traveling near light speed.
An iron nucleus?
Yeah, tearing right through the spacecraft hull, through the astronaut's skull, and into their eyeball, hitting the retina directly. Or sometimes zipping through the brain and hitting the visual cortex itself.
So each flash was a particle impact.
That's it. Each flash was literally the footprint of a subatomic bullet passing through a human brain.
That is profoundly disturbing. You're not just seeing light, you're feeling a particle hit you.
You're detecting it with your own biology.
Yeah.
Very unsettling.
How did NASA explain this publicly? They couldn't just ignore it if multiple crews were reporting it.
No, they could ignore it. So they framed it cleverly. As a curious anomaly, an interesting side effect of being in deep space.
Spin.
Pure spin. It became this interesting story about physics. Look, we could detect cosmic rays, which very neatly disguised the terrifying story about biology. What does it mean to have high-energy particles constantly shooting through your brain tissue?
Glad they know the answer to that.
That was the silenced question, wasn't it? The profound, unanswerable question at the time. What are the cumulative effects? Long-term? Neurological damage? Scarring on the retina? Cataracts down the line? Increased cancer risk? Nobody knew.
So the astronauts were just human guinea pigs in a way.
In the astronaut debriefings, reading between the lines, they come across as passive detectors. Helpless, really. The universe was literally leaving its signature on them, particle by particle. Not in a logbook, but in their cells.
Chilling. And this brings us to the storm that missed.
Ah, yes. August 1972. Right in the gap between Apollo 16 landing in April and Apollo 17 launching in December. Perfect or maybe terrifying timing.
What happened?
The sun went nuts. Specifically, one region, McMath region 111076. It unleashed a series of absolutely monster solar flares and SPEs, some of the biggest ever recorded, actually.
While no one was flying to the moon.
Exactly. If the schedule had been just slightly different, Apollo 16 launched later or 17 earlier. History could be very, very different.
How bad was this storm?
Unimaginably powerful.
Yeah.
Down here on Earth, it caused widespread electrical grid problems, blackouts in North America. Radio communications went haywire.
Okay.
And get this, the really weird one. U.S. Navy sea mines, the magnetic ones, off the coast of North Vietnam. They started detonating spontaneously.
The solar storm set off sea mines.
Apparently so. That's the kind of energy we're talking about, reaching across 93 million miles and affecting military hardware, a massive cosmic punch.
So what would have happened to an Apollo crew if they had been out there? Did NASA figure that out?
Oh, they did. While the storm was raging, scientists in Houston ran the numbers, flew a ghost mission on their computers, simulating an Apollo crew caught in that event. And the results were published, buried away in NASA Technical Note D7080. Terrifying doesn't begin to cover it.
How much radiation?
Inside the command module, the dose would have approached 400 rem.
400 rem, what does that mean in, like, human terms?
400 rem is roughly the LE50 dose, lethal dose 50%, meaning even with the best medical care imaginable, about half the people exposed would die within 60 days. Acute radiation sickness.
Horrible. And if they were outside on a moonwalk?
Unsurvivable. Instantly lethal dose, or close to it.
So the entire Apollo program's success?
Hung by a thread of timing, a profoundly lucky roll of the cosmic dice. They dodged a bullet the size of the sun. And this near miss, it never really got woven into that heroic public story of Apollo, did it?
No, wow. Just,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so years go by, decades. Apollo is this shining moment in history. Seems like the cost was paid, the risks were run, and we won.
It seemed that way. The bill looked paid in full. But like you said earlier, maybe the debt was just written in invisible ink.
And then someone started to read it.
Then someone did. In 2016, Dr. Michael Delp, a physiologist, published a study in the journal Scientific Reports. He looked up a long-term mortality of the Apollo astronauts compared to others.
And found
A statistical thunderclap. Really stark numbers. He found that 43%, nearly half of the deceased Apollo astronauts who had actually traveled beyond Earth orbit through the Van Allen belts into deep space.
the lunar astronaut?
Right. 43% of them died from cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, strokes.
Okay. What's the comparison? Is that high?
Extremely high compared to the control groups. He looked at astronauts who never flew and astronauts who only flew in low Earth orbit, like Skylab or shuttle crews. In those groups, the rate of cardiovascular death was around 10 or 11%.
So 4 to 5 times higher for the moon guys.
That's what the data showed. The men who went deep space were dying of heart and circulatory problems at a dramatically higher rate.
Why? What was the proposed link?
The GCRs. Those same high-energy particles that cause the light flashes. The thinking was, and is, that maybe they weren't just hitting eyeballs. Maybe they were causing low-level chronic damage throughout the body, particularly to the lining of blood vessels.
Like tiny little injuries, constantly.
Kind of. Leading to chronic inflammation, slow systemic scarring over years, decades, eventually contributing to cardiovascular failure. It suggests space travel's biological cost isn't just about the immediate acute radiation danger, but maybe this slow, grinding, microscopic damage too.
That's a heavy thought, but the study wasn't conclusive.
Right, and this is really crucial. The big limitation was the sample size. It was, as the book says, punishingly small.
How small?
At the time dubbed to the study, only 7 of the lunar astronauts had passed away. And of those 7, only 3 had died from cardiovascular disease.
Okay, yeah, that's not many to draw huge conclusions from.
Exactly. So it showed a very strong correlation, a really suggestive link, but you can't definitively say it proved causation. Not with those numbers.
But it certainly raised a massive red flag.
It absolutely did. It completely reframed that original silence around radiation. The focus had always been the big, scary SPEs, the acute risk. This pointed towards a chronic, insidious threat nobody had really accounted for.
So where does that leave us for, say, going to Mars?
The billion-dollar question, or maybe trillion-dollar. Mars is a whole different ballgame.
How so? Apollo was, what, 8 days? 10 days?
Something like that. A quick sprint, a Mars mission with current tech. We're talking maybe 3 years, round trip, minimum.
3 years exposed to deep space.
3 years bathing in those GCRs. They wouldn't just be occasional flashes. They'd be like, an atmosphere you have to breathe. Constant, cumulative, relentless exposure for the entire journey there, the time on Mars, the journey back. Largely unavoidable.
Is there shielding for GCRs now? Did we figure that out?
That's the brutal truth. No. We still don't have a practical, viable shielding solution for high-energy GCRs.
Why not? Just make the walls thicker. Lead shielding.
You'd think so, right? But it's this cruel paradox. If you make aluminum walls, say, thicker to stop GCRs, the GCRs smash into the aluminum atoms. And that collision creates a shower of secondary radiation particles inside the spacecraft. Neutrons, other nasty stuff. So thickening the walls can actually make the radiation dose worse inside.
You're kidding.
Nope, it's a cosmic catch-22. More shielding can mean more danger for this specific type of radiation. Water or liquid hydrogen seem better, but the amount you'd need is massive. Impractical for now.
So this leads to a really tough ethical place, doesn't it? For NASA, for astronauts.
A profoundly tough place. NASA has strict career radiation limits for its astronauts. They're designed to keep the added lifetime risk of dying from cancer below 3%. It's a phase D standard.
Yeah, the Mars mission.
Obliterates that standard. Just shatters it. The estimated GCR dose alone is staggering. Someone calculated it's like getting a full-body CT scan every 5 or 6 days.
For 3 years straight.
For 3 years straight. That's an unavoidable massive radiation dose way beyond current safety limits.
So what are NASA's options? What are anyone's options for Mars?
Stark choices, really.
Yeah.
Option 1, wait for some breakthrough in propulsion. Super fast engines that cut the trip time down from years to maybe months. That drastically reduces the GCR exposure. But that tech still seems pretty far off.
Option 2.
Option 2, formally change the standards. Ask astronauts to knowingly accept a much higher risk, to accept a known high probability of developing a fatal illness, like cancer or maybe cardiovascular disease, potentially years or decades after they get back, assuming they get back.
You accept the risk?
Yeah. It comes back to what the Apollo story highlights, doesn't it? The most profound danger of deep space radiation. It was never really solved. It was survived by luck, largely.
And those truths they buried or downplayed on the way to the moon?
They're still there, haunting the path to Mars.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot to think about. And we actually really want to know what you think. We love hearing from you and kind of digging into your reactions to these deep dives.
Yeah, definitely. What part of this story really jumps out at you? Does knowing the Cold War pressure make NASA's choices, the narrative management, more understandable? Or does the idea of informed consent for those astronauts feel more important, regardless of the politics?
Where do you land on that? We'd love to hear about it. Join the conversation. You can find HistoGate Chronicles on Instagram and X. Just search for us. Let us know what you think.
And hey, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah.
It really helps other people find the show and means you won't miss the next deep dive.
That's right.
Oh, and one more thing. If you prefer listening, maybe on your commute or whatever, there's a link to the free audiobook version of this specific story, The Biological Cost of Apollo Missions, right there in the description. Check it out.
So wrapping this up, Apollo. It left us this kind of dual legacy, didn't it?
It really did. On one hand, the undeniable brilliant glory, exploration, achievement, pushing boundaries, amazing stuff.
But on the other hand,
this quieter, much more complicated cautionary tale about risk, about ethics, about how powerful a story can be, and maybe about the cost of keeping secrets, even for good reasons.
it boils down to that question, maybe. When something huge is on the line, a nation's prestige, humanity's future, whatever, where is that line between strong leadership, taking necessary risks, and calculated deceit?
Yeah. And there's no easy answer, is
Yeah.
there? You can argue the Cold War made certain choices almost inevitable. You can also argue very strongly for the absolute right of those individuals putting their lives on the line to know exactly what they were facing.
No simple verdict.
Not at all.
So the glory of Apollo was real. Undeniably real. But the veil they drew over some of the risks, that was real too. And maybe the question that echoes down from Apollo for Mars, for whatever comes next, isn't just, can we go?
But what are we willing to hide from the public, from the astronauts,
Yeah.
maybe even from ourselves to get there?
A powerful thought to leave things on. We really hope you enjoyed this journey into the hidden costs behind one of humanity's greatest leaps. Thanks for joining us on HistoGate Chronicles.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Be sure to tune in for our next deep dive, where we'll uncover another incredible story from the archives of real historical conspiracies and cover-ups. Until then, stay curious.
And thanks for your loyalty.